In 2 days' time, voters in Boris Johnson's former Uxbridge constituency will have their chance to elect his replacement. At stake, a potential embarrassment for the Conservatives if they're unable to hang on to the West London seat. But with much of the campaign centring on opposition to Sadiq Khan's ULEZ expansion plan, it could be embarrassing for City Hall if Labour don't make the gain. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
Steve Tuckwell describes himself as the underdog. Uxbridge and South Ruislip was once seen as a safe Conservative seat, but a recent opinion poll put Labour 8 points ahead, which might be why the Tories have unashamedly tried to turn the by-election into a referendum on ULEZ.
The thousands of doors that I've been knocking on myself and the hundreds of volunteers I've got supporting me over the last 4.5 weeks has absolutely confirmed that. The number one message coming back from the doorstep is complete opposition to the ultra-low emission expansion into Uxbridge and South Ruislip.
Labour's candidate Danny Beales has supported the ultra-low emission zone in the past, but changed tack during the campaign.
He's now said, although he's in favour of ULEZ in general, not in favour of it in this particular way and now. And of course that's a massive screeching 180-degree U-turn really, compared with policy before.
And a policy which would appear to put him at odds with London's Labour mayor.
I hope to be doing more campaigning for Danny. I've been busy supporting him in the last few days and weeks, and I'll carry on working with him both up until 10 p.m. on Thursday, but also once he's the MP.
Mr Beale's campaign has attracted Labour's big hitters, but the candidate himself seems to have adopted a lower profile in recent days and couldn't talk to us. ITV News asked Labour 6 days ago if Danny Beales would be available today. Initially, we were told no because he was in back-to-back events. Later we heard we could see him for 10 minutes. Then yesterday, we were again told he was too busy. The Lib Dem candidate wonders if his Labour opponent is trying to avoid awkward questions about ULEZ.
I don't think it's a good strategy at all. Don't drop the Ming vase, so don't appear on any media. I think it's cowardly hiding from the public and the electorate.
But ULEZ wasn't the only local issue during the campaign. The unpopular closure of Uxbridge Police Station was unexpectedly reversed by the mayor, much to the surprise of local campaigners.
What's happened now is that Sadiq Khan has probably bowed to political pressure from Danny Beales, the Labour candidate, and also perhaps the revised circumstances of the police station. He's announced that he's not going to close it completely, that it will remain open.
Labour, meanwhile, accused the government of broken promises over the as-yet unbuilt new Hillingdon Hospital. There's just 1 day of campaigning left. Simon Harris, ITV News, Uxbridge.
Well, there are a total of 17 candidates standing in the Uxbridge and South Ruislip by-election. That is the highest number of candidates since the Halton Price and Howden by-election 15 years ago, when a whopping 26 candidates stood. Well, the polls opened this Thursday from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. The result is due to be declared in the early hours of Friday morning.
Good evening. We now know which Conservative candidates will be fighting to take the mayor's office from Sadiq Khan and the big policy she hopes will get her there. As Susan Hall was selected as the party's candidate for next year's election, she announced she would scrap the mayor's plans to expand the ULEZ on her first day in office. The Assembly member also wasted no time attacking Sadiq Khan's record on crime and the cost of living crisis. Meanwhile, Labour called her a hard-right politician, and there's only 10 months to go. Our political correspondent Simon Harris has the latest.
Susan Hall and Sadiq Khan are used to going head-to-head.
If you think it's the most important thing, then you must admit you've been a complete failure.
I accept that I failed to persuade a Conservative government to reverse the cuts they've made.
The London Assembly Tory and Labour mayor have frequently clashed at City Hall.
I've looked up what you were doing in that time and there was an awful lot of football going on.
Well, I note the commentary and bias in your question before the question.
But these spiky exchanges were mere skirmishes.
So you don't want to correct the statement then?
No, Chair, I'm quite clear what I've read out. I'm happy to read it out again if that helps.
No, it's a waste of time because you won't accept that ever that you're wrong.
Now the fight is for real after she was chosen as the Conservative Party candidate for mayor. She's on a mission to stop Sadiq Khan winning a third term next May.
I pledge that I will stop the ULEZ expansion on day one of my mayoralty. Over the next 10 months, I will expose Sadiq Khan for who he really is, and I will show London who we really are.
The Labour Party thinks it already knows.
The candidate, Susan Hall, is a Donald Trump supporter, Boris Johnson's friend, and also supported Liz Truss, who crashed our economy.
The Labour Party is already painting you as a hard-right, Trump-supporting Brexiteer. Are you the right person to represent Londoners?
Well, I'm not necessarily all of those things, no, and yes, I am the right person to represent Londoners. I feel the very same way as most Londoners do, and we'll find out on May the 2nd, won't we?
Hi. Last month, the Tory selection process was thrown into chaos when one of the aspiring candidates, Daniel Korski, was forced to pull out after allegations of inappropriate behaviour in his past, allegations he denied. That left Hall up against a relative unknown, Moz Hussain, a London barrister. She beat him, winning 57% of the votes from London Tories.
I've known Susan a long, long time. She is not what Sadiq Khan is portraying her as. And I think it shows how scared he is that he's now on the ropes and he has got a very, very strong candidate against him.
She's very much up for the fight. This is a lady who's not scared of taking Khan on, and that's really very important indeed.
What's your unique selling point?
I've got lots of unique selling points. I speak my mind. You know that, Simon, after all these years. I speak my mind. People know where they stand with me.
What's your Achilles heel?
Probably I speak my mind and get myself in trouble.
That happened 9 years ago when Gemma Collins was in I'm a Celebrity. In a tweet, Hall called her fat and ghastly. She later apologised and now says it was unkind and she shouldn't have said it. Simon Harris, ITV News.
Tonight, Sadiq Khan's own party pile on the pressure to drop the expansion of ULEZ.
The Conservative Party candidate, 13,965.
Thousands voted to keep the Tories firmly in place in the Uxbridge by-election, and it was the Mayor's controversial proposal that lost it for Labour.
Would you like to say a big thank you to Sadiq Khan?
It's the expansion of ULEZ which has cost Labour this election.
What happened here in Uxbridge has triggered a huge headache for Labour. Now even Sadiq Khan's party leader, Sir Keir Starmer, wants him to have a rethink.
We knew that ULEZ was going to be an issue. And of course, we all need to reflect on that, including the Mayor needs to reflect on that.
Also on the programme, chaos no more. Tube strikes are called off after a deal is struck with the unions. And Women's World Cup fever, excitement builds ahead of tomorrow's big match. Good evening. For more than a year, Sadiq Khan has stood firm against pressure to change his plans to expand ULEZ, but that pressure is now building from his own senior Labour colleagues as the issue was blamed for losing the party the Uxbridge and South Ruislip by-election, where Labour had tried to focus on the antics and record of the constituency's previous MP, Boris Johnson. Voters instead were motivated by the Mayor's controversial plans to introduce a charge to drive in their own area. The Tories just about managed to hold on to the seat, bucking the trend elsewhere. Our political correspondent Simon Harris joins us now from Uxbridge. Simon, just how embarrassing is this then for Labour and Sadiq Khan?
Duncan, there's no doubt that this is causing a lot of soul-searching within the Labour Party, and the blame game has begun. Sadiq Khan must surely be feeling the heat tonight. This is the seat formerly occupied by Boris Johnson, and the big prediction was that Labour would take it comfortably. It turned out to be a much more closely fought race. Labour's Danny Beale lost by just 495 votes to the Conservative candidate Steve Tuckwell. And even the winner was surprised by what unfolded here during the early hours of this morning. Rishi Sunak celebrated the election of his new Tory MP in the unlikely setting of the Rumbling Tum Cafe in South Ruislip. Steve Tuckwell's victory in Uxbridge and South Ruislip was a tiny glimmer of comfort for the Conservatives after a bruising night of by-election results. The Prime Minister thanked party activists, and there was a hug for Susan Hall, the Tory candidate for mayor.
Nobody expected us to win here, but Steve's victory shows that when people are confronted with a real choice, a choice on a matter of substance as they had here, they vote Conservative.
But the Conservative win was fragile.
Tuckwell Stephen, commonly known as Steve Tuckwell, the Conservative Party candidate, 13,965.
The Tory majority was slashed from more than 7,000 to just under 500. The winner seemed lost for words.
OK, wow. That's all I've got to say.
Uxbridge was one of 3 by-elections yesterday. In the other 2, the Conservatives lost, and lost badly. And many political commentators expected a similar result in West London. One recent opinion poll here suggested the Labour candidate was 8 points ahead of his Tory rival. A Labour victory seemed to be on the cards. But the Conservative strategy was to try to turn the by-election into a referendum on ULEZ. A tactic which appears to have paid off. How unpopular is ULEZ here?
Really unpopular. Yeah, really unpopular. Don't want it. I agree with the not going ahead with ULEZ, so that's why I voted for him as well.
It's no surprise. The ULEZ is such a big issue around here for everyone, really. But I think it's a shame.
Sadiq Khan's plan to extend the ULEZ in August to all of Greater London has already seen some of the new cameras here in Uxbridge vandalised. Labour's candidate Danny Beales initially backed ULEZ, but perhaps sensing the mood of voters, changed tack and called for it to be postponed. The confused message didn't help Labour's campaign, and senior Labour figures called on the Mayor to rethink his ULEZ plan.
Uxbridge was always going to be tough. We knew that. We didn't take Uxbridge in 1997, and we knew that ULEZ was going to be an issue. And of course, we all need to reflect on that, including the Mayor needs to reflect on that.
Would you like to say a big thank you to Sadiq Khan?
Well, it was Sadiq Khan's, pushing ULEZ into this constituency, which is what the residents telling me they didn't want. So, it's not the campaign that Labour wanted, and I think, it's the expansion of ULEZ which has cost Labour this election.
But the message from City Hall was clear. The Mayor has no plan to do a U-turn. So the big political question here tonight is, how do you solve a problem like ULEZ? Will last night's result force Sadiq Khan to think again? Helen Keenan reports now on the big bump in the road for the Mayor of London.
He's remaining defiant, despite his policy being blamed for Labour's Uxbridge by-election failure. In London today, the Mayor held his ground on his ULEZ expansion.
Is that what has led to defeat?
Well, listen, there was no ULEZ expansion in 1997, or 2001, or 2005. I'm quite clear, though, that every time there's a seat up for grabs, we should try and do our best. So I'm pleased there was a 7% increase in our vote. Disappointed, we didn't quite get there in relation to the win. We're 500 votes short. We've got a mayoral election next May.
With the mayoral election looming, his Conservative competition thinks Sadiq Khan sticking to his plan will hand her his job.
We will win the mayoral election campaign, I guarantee you. We do not want the expanded ULEZ. We've been telling him for well over a year. He's not listening.
It's certainly how some feel here in Ruislip. There were 4 ULEZ cameras here. We've been told they were ripped down by those who were angry about the expansion.
Sadiq Khan's plan to extend the ULEZ scheme to outer London has been divisive, and the future of it could now be derailed.
This carpet business in Ruislip has been running for almost 90 years. They barely survived Brexit and COVID. They think ULEZ will kill off the company, with customers unwilling to pay £12.50 to come to the high street.
It's going to have a huge effect on your business.
Yes, it will do, and it's transformative. It means we're probably going to have to leave where we live currently because we won't be able to support the mortgage, and we'll have to leave the area that we live in now. I've got a disabled son. It means transforming where we are for him. So it's what seems small because people who live in central London and who have benefited from all these things don't see the harm it will do.
But for others, they think it could be a lifesaver. Ruth's little boy was hospitalised because of his asthma.
I was already concerned about air pollution. I had an instinct that it was having an impact on his health, but this was really confirmed by the consultant that we saw. Vehicle emissions are profoundly dangerous to human health.
The mayor says air pollution is causing thousands of Londoners to die prematurely. But after that by-election result, he's clearly under pressure over his policy. Helen Keenan, ITV News.
So, Simon, it does seem like the mayor is now fighting on multiple fronts.
Yes, even before last night's result, there was no guarantee Sadiq Khan would be able to go ahead with his launch on August the 29th, simply because he's waiting for a decision from the High Court. 5 councils have asked a judge to declare his plan unlawful and force him back to the drawing board. Well, now it seems his own party is trying to get him to do that anyway. Emily Thornberry, the Islington South MP and a shadow Attorney General, said today that the party has asked him to look at it again. But the danger for the mayor is that if it's postponed, the launch is postponed, then it would become one of the, if not the, defining issue of next year's mayoral election, and that would play into the Conservative Party's hands. As for here in Uxbridge, well, what was once a safe Conservative seat is now a marginal. Duncan.
Simon, thank you very much.